Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone tuning in today for another Supatease PvP walkthrough. And in this example, I'm going to be playing a Restoration Shaman. I'm playing with a Shadow Priest and a Demon Hunter against an Arms Warrior Enhancement Shaman Resto Druid. So melee cleaves are pretty standard, so 2 melee classes. These 2 in particular can be quite deadly for a Shadow Priest. So I'm going to be going over my thought process, my positioning, and what I'm really looking out for through the match to eventually deny the kill long enough to attrition the Druid's mana bar using the Demon Hunter's ability, Mana Rift. Fortunately, we are fighting the Druid version, so we can triple dot against this. If we were fighting a Mistweaver version, we would opt out of putting damage over time effects on the Shaman, and you would look for hexes on the Shaman. It's important to note that if you fight melee cleaves with Mistweavers, you want to be hexing a target that can normally dispel hexes, in this case the Shaman. But against this, my hex is no purpose because the Druid can dispel it, and we can get more spread pressure against a Druid than we can a Mistweaver, so you do want to triple dot. At the start, I expect him to attack Shadow Priest, as his insanity is at 0. I look to try and earth grab the melee. Fortunately, I either missed that or there was a slight delay. You do want to make sure you land that earth grab. That way your Shadow Priest is given enough time and space to generate insanity. Then you want to position yourself about 40 yards roughly away from the Shadow Priest. Interestingly enough though, against this team, they go for a split strategy, which forces me to reposition in between both the Demon Hunter and the Shadow Priest, but exposes me to more crowd control and potential interrupts. On this charge, I expected an intimidating shout, so I placed Tremor Totem, but instead they went for a Storm Bolt. You can typically expect Heroic Leap and or Charge from the Warrior to dictate either a swap or a fear. I was more afraid of a fear in that situation, so I opt to Tremor to try and prevent it. In this position, I use Healing Tide now to deal with the remainder of this avatar. The Warrior has Avatar currently activated, increasing his damage, dropping a Healing Tide to try and soak that up, and also deal with the fact that they're splitting multiple targets. I drag the Enhancement Shaman out of position and root him out of line of sight of Dispels. This then gives me a lot of breathing room, and it allows me to extend my cooldowns for some time. This team is trying to deal with the Demon Hunter mana burning and also trying to keep pressure on another target. And right now they're both connecting onto the Shadow Priest, so I've got to get in position. I'm going to start thinking about using Earthen Wall Totem, but I'm also keeping the Shaman in my back eye as I see him running towards him. As soon as I expected him to be rounding around the corner, he actually went after the Demon Hunter instead. So this Earthen Wall Totem in this position didn't get very much value. The main importance here is that I was expecting crowd control and I was expecting the Shaman to chase my priest, but because the Shaman went off screen, I didn't actually notice. Here I use an Earth Grab route. I'm expecting them to switch to my Demon Hunter because he's so far out of position. So I try to get an Earth Grab totem in between onto the charge stun, so that when the Warrior charges, he gets rooted and hopefully is out of range of the Demon Hunter. So you see a Storm Bolt and then he gets rooted. This was in an attempt to try and reduce the amount of damage on this incoming swap, but even still, when the Warrior uses Trinket, we end up overlapping cooldowns, and this was because we didn't expect that amount of damage. It should have been clear that he was overextending and he may need to use a cooldown. We overlapped Nether Walk and our life swap. These are 2 cooldowns you never want to press at the same time because they both guarantee that you will survive typically in that position. So then we ended up having Burning Dispersion. So we are very far behind on cooldowns. Fortunately, they used both of their Gladiator's medallions to get out of that attack, and that's mostly what caught me off guard because I had prepared so far in advance for that. But you still need to keep a cool level head. Enhancement Shamans and Rep Paladins and lots of melee classes can just do a ton of damage out of nowhere, and if you're not prepared on who's using what first, in this composition, if they are attacking the Demon Hunter, his Nether Walk should always be the first cooldown. It's the shortest and it's a personal cooldown, whereas Life Swap from the Priest can be used on multiple members in case they attack a different target. It's important to have that option moving forward. Now we don't have it. I use the pillar here to line of sight an incoming hex, and then I'm preparing myself to potentially wind shear. I see a cap totem and I try and move away from it, but I end up not being able to avoid it. Unfortunately here, I could have covered this hex, but my Shadow Priest overlapped with me. I should have grounded it. I expected to be out of range of it. It would have been much better in that position to be safe and ground it if you're not entirely sure if you're going to be out of range. Because of this hex secured, my Demon Hunter has to use Blur. Fortunately, he's got it up and running before the incoming stun, and I can quickly recover. You should be aiming to use your Riptides on targets below 50% HP to benefit from the Surging Tides Azurite trait, as well as your increased mastery of healing a target low. So when you Riptide a target low, you get a shield. Out of that, you want to be using healing surges or healing waves if you feel like you have the time. I try to get a cap totem onto the DPS so that my team can safely push forward and stop the druid from drinking. That's our main prerogative, our main win condition is using Mana Rift until the druid runs out of mana and then just killing the entire team with a lot of spread pressure. But it's a pretty long road and you want to be making the least amount of mistakes that you can along that path. Now I see both melee moving forward in a Stormbolt. The Stormbolt means they're going Demon Hunter, so I will use the Earthen Wall Totem during that stun to allow him to be tanky. And it's basically the main rotation for Stormbolts is Blur for one Stormbolt, Earthen Wall Totem for the next Stormbolt, Blur for the next Stormbolt, Earthen Wall for the next Stormbolt. Those cooldowns are rotating effectively with each other, and if their damage gets excessive, whether it be cooldowns or sometimes RNG, you then may need to use a Spirit Link Totem, a Nether Walk, or a Void Shift. If it's the Demon Hunter, it's always Void Shift first, or always Nether Walk first, then opts into Spirit Link or Life Swap depending on who's available at the time. But you want to communicate so you don't overlap those big, powerful, beefy cooldowns. You also don't want to overlap the Blur or the Earthen Wall totems if you can. So now there's a Stormbolt almost available because my Earthen Wall is about 30 seconds. So there's a Stormbolt. My Demon Hunter uses Trinkets. He should also potentially use Blur. There's Blur now traded effectively, denying the interrupt potential kill and denies a lot of the avatar damage. And as long as you keep this defensive cooldown cycle going, you should be able to keep your Demon Hunter up throughout the match unless he catches you off guard or your team makes a mistake. But now that this match has been going on for so long, Netherwalk is now available. Unfortunately, my Demon Hunter did use his Trinket during that last attempt, and you can't use Netherwalk in a stun. So for this next stun, I need to try and look to pre-Earthen Wall and or Void Shift and or Trinket Spirit Link, and I want to be calling that out ahead. Even though we've got a lot of pressure, even though we're forcing cooldowns, we've almost won on mana, you need to stay focused because even a Wind Shear against this composition can close the end of the game, and you want to be calling it out. So I see the warrior across the map, and he uses Stormbolt on my priest. That gives me a breath of relief because if that Stormbolt had been on my Demon Hunter with no Trinket, it would be a lot scarier. So then I reposition, and then I end up fat fingering Spirit Link because I've rearranged my keybinds for Earth Grab and Spirit Link very close to each other. And this is where if you make a mistake, that's a pretty big one to accidentally hit the wrong key binding. So that now leaves a huge opening, and it's going to spiral their momentum. They're going to be getting a lot of morale boosted from that. During this intimidating shout, which is crowd control, you can opt to use a powerful cooldown. So my Demon Hunter uses Nether Walk. I was not able to get out of line of sight, unfortunately, for the Hex. I should have used Grounding Totem. I'm playing a bit lazy in terms of that. I should be grounding these hexes. There's a Stormbolt attempt, so I use Trinket and Earthen Wall Totem to deny the kill. You can see if I did not Trinket and do that immediately. The main reason I use my Trinket is because I used Spirit Link accidentally earlier on. Now I'm relying on Blur, now I'm relying on Void Shift, but even with those in the tank, we should have more than enough to keep this game going and end it with how far ahead we are at this point. That isn't to say that you shouldn't be trying to not make these mistakes. I see the Shaman going after me, so I will use Ghost Wolf, and I have an Azurite trait, Pack Spirit, and Honor Talent as well that increases my healing in Ghost Wolf. So anytime I get attacked, I use Ghost Wolf to heal. It costs no mana, you move faster, and it heals more than what you can do. So whenever your target, Ghost Wolf is your main go-to heal. Now I position towards the top as they have been kind of going after me, and I pre-Ghost Wolf the incoming stun. This denies the kill unless they can purge me. The important thing when a team trains you, though, is that you stay near your team so that they can use powerful cooldowns such as Darkness. So that's where I'm making my way back to the Demon Hunter. If I'm getting trained down, I want to be next to him so he can activate Darkness should I need it, or I want to be in line of sight of my priest so he can use Void Shift should I need it. You don't want to be caught out of position in a stun, purged out of Ghost Wolf, as you are more likely to die in that position. When you're fighting double melee, it is better to be in the middle of the map, in range of your partners, and not too far away out of line of sight. The opposite is true when you're fighting two casters, but here I'm kind of out of line of sight of my team, so I Earthbind the warrior and opt to go back in their line of sight. Now we've got Earthen Wall Totem coming up. We've used Blur a bit preemptively here, and he manages to get it before the Stormbolt, which is perfect. Unfortunately, I end up overlapping defensives. Luckily, that overlap mistake is covered by the fact that the Shaman dies, but you still want to keep that cycle internalized in your mind. For every Stormbolt is a Blur into Earthen, into Blur, into Earthen. Intimidating Shout is likely to be a nether walk, a void shift, or a spirit link totem in some cases, or just kiting and avoiding it is a perfectly good option. But you should try to keep these defensive cycles in the back of your mind against this composition so that you always have an out and you always have an option, so you can make it into deep dampening and win off these attrition style plays. So thank you guys for tuning in to my video. I hope it was of some assistance to you in your own play. I am enjoying my time learning lots of different classes and taking you guys along with me. Make sure that you subscribe to the stream. Make sure that you hit that notification bell and give me any feedback. If you've got anything you want to ask, any questions or any ideas or suggestions, I read the comments every single day and I do my best to respond to them and do deal with them at the same time. So just do it for me. I would appreciate it. Thank you, and I will see you in the next video.